Orion High was one of the most prestigious academies in the galaxy, a place where young men's minds were sharpened like weapons, where the next generation of leaders, diplomats, and war strategists were trained. In this place where discipline was impeccable and rules were unbreakable, every morning was almost exactly like the day before. This morning began no differently for Kale Redden. Opening his eyes, he saw the Saturnus, the 9th satellites circling outside his artificial window. He climbed out of his 3rd-generation gravity bed and dressed quietly, as always. The information band tied to his left wrist vibrated gently, alerting him to the day's task list. Nutrition intake, 7:15. Observation lab duty, 9 o'clock. Group interaction session, 11:30. He hated group interaction sessions. The breakfast room was, as always, sterile, silent, and unnerving. The dark gray tables seemed designed specifically to prevent students from chatting. Theo Brantz approached Kale as he nibbled on his algae-based carbon bar, the corners of his eyes betraying his computer's attention. There might be an AI hidden inside these tablets, Theo muttered. I tried to open one last night, but it self-destructed. Kale rolled his eyes. Maybe it's just corrupted, or the Academy is slowly poisoning us, Theo said with a grin. Just think, a few gifted people disappear every year, disguised as accidents. He was about to comment on Theo's absurd theory when a loud announcement suddenly filled the hall. All students, immediate transfer to the outer landing platform. The Galactic exchange program has been initiated. Please gather immediately. The carbon bar in Kale's hand fell to the floor. Galactic Juno Markex asked, having heard the announcement. As she entered the hall, her blonde hair was disheveled, her training uniform soaked with sweat. Is this campus taking in aliens now? Soon, all the students headed for the outer landing platform. During the short, silent walk, no one was quite sure what to expect. For years, Orion High had been teaching exclusively to human students. Interaction with other species was limited to diplomatic missions after graduation. As they arrived, they saw the massive hangar doors slowly open. A silvery, organically shaped spaceship pierced the gray sky and began its descent. The ship seemed woven not of metal, but of liquid light. The students watched in silence. The first figure to emerge from the ship was a tall, graceful woman. Her golden skin danced in the sunlight, and her long, pointed ears, curling upward from her forehead, caught the eye. 4 more emerged. All 5 were different from each other, yet equally striking. Their attire embodied the aesthetic and technological synthesis of Lumeris culture. A silent magic permeated the crowd. The girl walking in front spoke first. Her voice was resonant, gentle, and yet commanding. I'm Aurelia Vey. I've been sent to Orion High as an exchange student on behalf of the Lumeris Star Council. Our team and I will be here for a semester observing human society and interacting with you. These words echoed in Kale's mind. Lumeris, an isolated civilization on the far edge of the galaxy. Little was known about them. They were genetically advanced, extremely long-lived, and impressive enough to overturn most species' notions of physical beauty. One of them, a short girl with striking eyes, who seemed quite outspoken and energetic, began to speak with a chuckle. I'm Ole. Nice to meet you. What's that word? We've come to celebrate your death. Sudden chaos erupted. The students backed away slightly. One of the officers on duty reached for his weapon, but Aurelia smiled faintly. There are still some glitches in the translator, she said calmly. Saren meant to say we've come to bring peace. Saren bowed her head, her face flushed. The expression was wrong. Juno, however, tried hard not to laugh. This looks like it's going to be fun. At that moment, another of them approached the keep, tossing back her curly hair. Her gaze was sharp, her tone soft, yet threatening. I'm Zariel Vaughn. Where are this building's defenses? I've identified gaps in the map. If someone tries to attack at night, You're a very easy target, Theo whispered. This is definitely not diplomacy training. This is intelligence. And finally, another person arrived, walking slowly as if emerging from the light. Almost the entire crowd stared at her. Vela Lynn. She was dazzling. Even her walk was like a form of art. She looked people directly in the eyes. As if time slowed with each step, Juno involuntarily stumbled back when she met her gaze. Do you live at this school? Vela asked, a slight smile on her lips. I must admit, I like your gravity. Kale was suddenly so engulfed in the roar of the crowd that he couldn't hear his own voice. The moment the numerous students arrived, the entire balance of Orion High was disrupted. The static discipline had been replaced by emotion and chaos. That night, as Kale returned to his room, he thought only one thing. These girls couldn't be just exchange students. There were so many more. The first week after the numerous students' arrival had brought a magical imbalance to the Orion High campus. The labs were quieter, the sports fields more crowded, and the cafeteria had become a charming place. Most of the male students either admired the 5 foreign girls from afar or tried to attract attention with unnecessary heroism. But some sensed that this change wasn't just superficial. Kale, in particular, Aurelia Vey had adapted strangely quickly to the classroom. She was quiet, but sharp. She answered questions only when necessary in class, never directly engaging with anyone. Talking to her was like talking to a cloud, formless, distant, yet captivating. Kale had met with her a few times for group work, but their conversations generally remained technical. Nix Italian, on the other hand, seemed to take immense pleasure in tinkering with human technology. Theo Brance's special projects had particularly piqued her interest. One day, she turned on Theo's personal computer, which he had secured with at least 7 layers of encryption. Simply out of curiosity, Kale watched from the corner of the lab, and Theo's face began to turn purple. How did you do that? Theo asked, a series of heart animations swirling on his computer screen. I like your simulation engine, Nixa said, pointing to the love test app running on the screen. But your algorithm is a bit overrating people. 97.5 for Vela. That's not serious. Did you read it? Theo shouted. I didn't, Nixa said, bowing her head and then smiling. I just scanned it. From that day on, Theo was banned from his lab, but Nixa had already learned to remotely connect to the computer on the other side of campus. Juno Markex was grappling with a new problem. Vela Lynn, the numerous girl's flirtatious and direct demeanor had shaken Juno's ego. Normally, such attention was commonplace and welcome, but Vela was in a different league. His words were measured yet effective. His walk was polished yet sincere, and his eye contact unsettling. Because it was genuine, Vela had started joining Juno's morning runs and even questioned her exercise plan. So much leg exercise makes you unstable, she'd said one morning. Your upper body is weak. The enemy will knock you down. Juno had smiled with resentment. I've won 3 matches with this body. Strength isn't measured in scoring, Vela had said. But you're beautiful. That's useful. And she walked away. At that moment, Juno didn't know what to say. This time, the game wasn't hers, but Vela's, and she loved it. It was terrifying. Meanwhile, Kale, struggling to maintain a barely breathing social balance, was unexpectedly summoned by Aurelia in the cafeteria one day. You're Kale Redden, Aurelia said, without hesitation. Kale nodded. Yes, I've reviewed your mind analysis. I want to work with you on your project. Me. Kale was taken aback. Why? Aurelia paused briefly. You're quiet. Quiet people observe. Are you observing right now? Kale didn't answer, because Aurelia's eyes spoke louder than her words. That night, Theo came to Kale's room in a panic. His eyes were blazing wildly. Kale, Nixa has infiltrated my system. She's installed her own alien software. My entire system has turned to love. It's analyzing emotions. This is sabotage. Maybe she just wanted to have fun, Kale said wearily. No, Theo said, raising his finger. This digital love simulation is interfering with the Academy's security system. If the simulation goes right, automatic defenses could accidentally activate. Kale sat up abruptly. So, a wrong flirtation could trigger something like a fire alarm. Worse, Theo said. Automatic lockout. And you got the highest score on that test. Kale went cold. Me? Yeah. 98.3% compatibility with Aurelia. At the same time, on the outer perimeter of campus, security systems were detecting strange data streams. An unknown software was infiltrating the campus perimeter. Someone inside, or someone, was using code that didn't belong to Orion High, but who? Although Orion High appeared to be a symbol of discipline and silence, from a distance, it harbored secrets lurking beneath its ornate order. With the arrival of the Lumerous students, these secrets had begun to surface, and most people weren't even aware of it, but someone did. Zariel, VONN. In the morning, while everyone was still asleep, Zariel slipped into one of the secret access corridors behind the Academy's east hangar. With her usual stoic expression, she scanned the digital map, trying to detect any anomalous energy flows. She stopped in front of a door. The room was marked out of order, but it contained an active power source. She inserted her data crystal into the access panel and, after a few seconds of security scan, opened the door. Inside was an old military communications station, not listed in Orion High's official database. Examining the system, she found a record of a signal transmission activated just a week prior. The transmission point was towards the Lumerous system. Zariel's eyes narrowed. One of them was sending unauthorized data from the Academy to Lumerous later. That day, the school campus appeared as peaceful as ever. Students participated in various scientific and social activities throughout the day, with both Lumerasian and human partners. But this integration effort almost never went smoothly. Saren Olay had made another mistake in her cultural understandings class, assigned to analyze human behavior. Smiling at the class, she asked, "When people are friends, they touch each other, right?" And then slapped the professor on the head. "It's a sign of friendship in Lumerous culture," she said with a shameless smile. Professor Glint adjusted his glasses and muttered, "That's a rather physical gesture," rubbing his head. Amidst all this, Chaos Nixa Italian had begun to delve deeper into Theo's systems. It had begun as mere curiosity, but now it had become an obsession. The human software systems were primitive but entertaining to her, but something she did unknowingly triggered the internal security systems. Theo and Nixa faced each other simultaneously in the Academy's data security room. An automatic alarm had gone off, and the AI had gone into defense mode. A holographic face emerged from the panels and spoke harshly. "Internal Academy breach detected. Source: unknown module from Lumerous. System entering quarantine mode. Shut it down," Theo shouted, clutching at the cables in panic. "It's not me," Nixa retorted, "but it could have been me." Kale approached the system and intervened with a voice. "Command. Code 001. Denial protocol. Human student right to intervene." The holographic face flickered, then faded. The room fell silent. Only the small, guilty smile on Nix's lips remained. That night, the dormitories were silent, but every mind was preoccupied with a different set of accounts. After that day's group study with Aurelia, Kale found herself constantly replaying Aurelia's words in her head. Aurelia had made some surprising observations about people. People become what they believe, she had said. But the source of their beliefs is often external. Your emotions are governed by your desires, not your mind. "We are more instinctive than you," Kale had said quietly. "No," Aurelia had said. "You are more complex. It's fascinating." Kale's heartbeat struggled to steady itself after that sentence, and that same night Zariel Vaughn snuck into Kale's room. Without explanation, she left the holographic device she was holding on the table. The image it produced showed an encrypted message sent from the Academy to the Lumerous system. The message had not yet been deciphered. "This post was made the day after we arrived," Zariel said. "I didn't do it. If the other girls didn't do it too, someone might be working on our behalf." Kale took a shuddering breath. "So, is there an agent among us?" Zariel nodded. "Either someone is working off duty, or this is a trap. People are suspicious too, so why are you showing it to me?" Kale asked. "Because your eyes are questioning," Zariel said. "And people who question look in the right places." At that moment, Kale noticed something else behind the hardness in Zariel's eyes for the first time. Fear. It was as unanswerable as the others. The next day, an explosion rocked the security perimeter of the campus. The energy barrier at the outer rim of the system collapsed for only a few seconds. But that was enough time for a small, unidentified drone, not belonging to the Lumerous ship, to infiltrate. The craft shimmered like stardust in the sky and vanished. But one of the observation towers recorded it briefly moving toward the center of campus, then rising again. Aurelia, upon learning of this event, said nothing. She simply stared at Kale. For a long time, Kale saw more in that gaze than words. Orion High was no longer a school. It was the threshold before a silent war began. The momentary collapse of the security systems and the subsequent unauthorized drone invasion had completely transformed the atmosphere at Orion High. Routine checks were increased, and guard patrols were tripled. Students were banned from outside areas, although administrators declared the incident a simple technical malfunction. No one believed it, especially the Lumerous girls. Zariel Vaughn was now openly conducting an investigation. She spent nights analyzing maps of the Academy, combing through security footage, uncovering details no one else noticed. In the process, she was reluctantly forced to collaborate with Theo, although neither of them agreed. The combined technical brilliance of their skills was alarming. There was a signal connecting to the Academy's communication networks from outside. What's more, this signal was encrypted with the Lumerous protocol. Only when they analyzed the signature within the code did the truth emerge. Seren Olay was Seren, the naive and sweet woman known for her foolish behavior and her translator mishaps, a spy. When Zariel showed Kale and Theo her findings at the data center, where student records were located, all three of them fell silent simultaneously. The images were clear. Seren had been infiltrating the lab at night, gathering data from within the Academy with a holographic device. Then, she was transferring it in a format not belonging to Lumerous. Theo sank into his chair upon learning of this. "She sent me Star Trek the other day. She identified with a character there. I think that character was a space spy." Kale stood up angrily. "This can't be real. Just yesterday she asked me what the scent of flowers was. She's so naive." "Naivety," Zariel said softly, "is the best disguise." The next day, Seren Olay was much quieter than usual. She was smiling, but her eyes were constantly averted. Aurelia, unlike the other girls, had become a loner. She hadn't attended the diplomacy class that day, instead taking random walks around campus. Vela no longer spoke to Juno with the same sarcasm she used to. She hadn't even spoken a word all day. Nixa, on the other hand, had stopped seeing Theo, completely erasing herself from the system. It was as if everything had frozen. One night, Zariel sent Kale a message, behind the library. Now. Kale quickly left her room. She knew she had violated nightly protocols, but she no longer cared about those details. The Academy was like a fortress on the verge of collapse, and it was rotting from the inside. In the shadowy spot behind the library, Zariel, Aurelia, and Theo were already waiting for her. Their expressions were dark, their eyes filled with tension. Zariel spoke directly. Saren is an agent, but she's not working of her own volition. Aurelia shook her head. Not of her own volition. A force other than Lumerus is using her. An ancient protocol, part of something much darker. Who? Kale asked. Who is she working for? Theo opened a holographic map. In its center was a glowing planet symbol. Its name, YOL-MARETH. YOL-Mareth, was an isolated region in the dark corner of the galaxy, where no diplomatic presence operated. Legends said that some kind of psychic control system had been developed there. Even humans shuddered at the mention of this region. Aurelia spoke in a hushed voice. Siren was disabled en route on the Lumerous ship, but someone could have hijacked her mind frequency from the outside, so she was a puppet. Kale asked. Zariel replied, yes, but now, the puppet has broken free from its strings, and it's unstable. That same midnight, the campus's energy system completely collapsed. Backup generators failed. Firewalls were shut down. Gates were locked. Students were trapped in their dormitories. A second spaceship appeared in the sky. A black and structure hovered above Orion High. It pulsed at the same frequency as Yolmareth signals. Theo and Kale were attempting to restart the electrical system in the technical control room. Suddenly, Saren's image appeared in the holograms, but it wasn't Saren. Her eyes were white, her expression grim. Orion High is now within Yolmareth's observation range. Knowledge and body are not yours. You belong to the collective. Having seized control of the system, activated its defenses against the Lumerician students. The Academy began to attack its own students, Chaos, while Kale and Zariel were physically intervening in the technical center to stop the security drones. Aurelia instinctively turned to the central tower. Something had awakened within her. A familiar power lurked in her eyes. Perhaps an old energy, drawn from Lumerus's past. An ancient bond. Juno and Vela, meanwhile, were trying to lead the group from the dormitories out. Vela's leadership qualities were fully evident for the first time. She was giving orders, breaking down doors, clearing a path. Juno, for the first time in her life, took a mission seriously. There were no games anymore. When Zariel finally confronted Saren, the two faced each other in one of the academy halls. Saren's mind was torn between two extremes. One moment she was herself. The next she spoke with the voice of Yolmareth. Zariel pointed a gun at her, but her hands trembled. Saren, this is not you. You did not choose this. I don't know anymore, Saren said. There's something inside me. It keeps whispering. She paused for a moment. Tears welled up in her eyes, and then she ran and jumped out the window. Saren survived, her body severely injured, but she lost consciousness. Teams arrived at the tower and treated her. However, it was unknown whether the mental control effect remained. The Yolmareth ship retreated after a while, but it was certain that she had only come to test it, and after this test, nothing would ever be the same again. By morning, Orion High was silent, but it wasn't the silence of peace, but of a weary war. Saren lay unconscious in the Academy's quarantine center. Her entire body was surrounded by medical technology. The remnants of her mind control influence were still undetectable. Zariel watched her for several hours each day, sitting silently beside her. No one could tell if she was angry, sad, or simply tired. With Nyx's help, Theo had begun rebuilding the campus's digital system, but now they were aware of the security vulnerabilities. Yolmareth hadn't just left his mark on Orion High, he had weakened it. But the real threat lay within. Kale, Zariel, and Aurelia were summoned to a private meeting with the professors 2 days after the attack. The Academy's administration had chosen to conceal the events. The official explanation: temporary technical disturbance due to a malfunction in the energy system. Rather than blame the Lumerous students for the whole incident, the administration chose to continue their cooperation in the name of galactic diplomacy. But Aurelia realized there was something else behind this decision. As she walked with Kale after the meeting, she broke her silence. People prefer to make up stories rather than face the truth. That might be what makes you strong, Kale thought, for a moment. No, that's what makes us fragile. Aurelia turned her head to him. For the first time, there was a fragility in her eyes, instead of the divine Lumerician serenity. My duty was to observe you, but as I watched you, I saw myself. We in Lumerus forgot who we were. You reminded me. These words echoed in Kale's mind. Aurelia approached her, but no contact occurred. Silence was enough. Juno and Vela, however, were on the verge of a completely different conflict. The playful tension between them after the attack had given way to a genuine bond. But as the time for her return approached, Vela was withdrawing into herself. When Juno approached her in one of the Academy's empty corridors, she was looking at the floor. This place may be broken, Vela said, but what I feel here belongs to me. This planet, this chaos, these impulses resonated within me. You could belong here, Juno said solemnly. I wish you were the one who woke me up every morning, but the galaxy is fascinatingly vast. Vela turned her gaze to him. And you are fascinatingly stubborn. That's a human trait, Juno replied with a slight smile. If one of us gets a little involved with you, it's hard to go back. Kale was alone, in her room that night, but her head was filled with thoughts. Siren's betrayal, the Academy's weakness, humanity's fragility, and Lumerus's unknown past hole, intertwined. She sat up in bed and unrolled the information strip on her arm. The message was from Aurelia. Come to the Central Dome. I'll leave. The answer's there. The Central Dome was the highest point of Orion High. It was a star-filled sphere surrounded by translucent walls, projecting the Academy's entire star map into the sky. Aurelia was there when Kale entered. She held a small, transparent crystal in her hand. This, the girl said, is one of Lumerus's first star codes. It contains our evolutionary memory. We have escaped reality over time. We have created a civilization where desires have vanished. But perhaps that has diminished us. She handed the crystal to Kale. Your species is like an unsolved equation. Chaotic, hot, fragile, but you are alive. And I no longer want to forget this chaos. Kale took the crystal. The warm glow in her hands matched the reflection in her eyes. For the first time, in that moment, the silence was filled with meaning. Days later, the Lumerus ship departed. It wasn't just 5 strangers. It was many unseen things that had been carried away from the Academy. Saren wasn't taken to Lumerus. She had said she wanted to remain among humans. When she regained some consciousness, she whispered only this: I want to choose now. At the last moment, Vela whispered a short sentence into Juno's earpiece. If you don't want me to forget you, don't forget me. Nixa inserted a USB into Theo. This is for you. But be careful. It contains Lumerus humor. It could be explosive. And Kale simply exchanged glances. Words were unnecessary. Aurelia approached Kale before boarding. She said one last farewell, without any contact, just a warm gesture. Perhaps we'll meet again, Kale said. Aurelia nodded. The stars, remember. The humans too. And the ship departed. Orion High fell silent again. But now it was a different kind of silence. Because the events of those days had demonstrated not only the depth of galactic diplomacy, but also the human spirit. 5 golden-skinned strangers had changed the lives of a group of young men. Humor, love, betrayal, chaos, and loyalty had all taken root in their hearts like stars. And every time Kale Redden ascended the dome, every time he picked up the crystal Aurelia had left, he was reminded, not of how big the galaxy was, but of how much space there was within it. Because sometimes, the greatest change begins when someone truly sees you